Julie stopped in the doorway, one hand gripping the frame. For several seconds, she simply stared. Jackson, Herr Jackson, the man she had married less than a year ago, was sitting quietly on the sofa. Yet the person looking back at her was unmistakably an elderly woman. Silver-white hair peeked from beneath a colorful headband, and a pastel cardigan rested neatly over a floral dress. A pair of knitting needles lay across her lap. Julie blinked hard. Nothing changed. Jackson. The woman looked up with a gentle smile. There you are, dear. I was beginning to wonder when you'd return. Julie couldn't move. What are you wearing? Jackson glanced down at herself, apparently confused by the question. My clothes, of course. You're 23. A puzzled expression crossed the woman's face. 23. She gave a soft laugh. Oh, Julie. You really do say the strangest things. Julie felt the room tilt beneath her. She rushed to the bedroom. The closet was filled with clothing she had never seen before. Dresses, scarves, cardigans, sensible shoes, wide-brimmed hats. The dresser contained photographs, letters, and personal belongings that all seemed to belong to someone decades older. Her hands shaking, Julie grabbed the first photograph album she could find. She opened it. Every photograph showed the same elderly woman. At birthday parties. At family gatherings. In parks. At community events. Always smiling. Always surrounded by people who seemed to know her. Julie turned another page. There she was again. Jackson. Except according to the photographs, Jackson had apparently been elderly for as long as Julie could remember. No. She stumbled toward the desk and began searching through the documents. A driver's license. Age, 74. Gender, female. The photograph matched the woman in the living room perfectly. Julie stared at the card until the letters blurred. Then she found a birth certificate. 74 years old. Same name. Same address. Same person. It was as if the universe had quietly rewritten Jackson's entire existence, and everyone except Julie had accepted the new version. She returned to the living room. Jackson was adjusting her cardigan. Are you ready for dinner? Julie could barely speak. Dinner? Of course. We shouldn't be late. There's a special this afternoon. Julie stared at her. Jackson continued talking cheerfully about the restaurant, the senior center, and a game of bingo scheduled later that evening. Everything sounded ordinary. That was the terrifying part. Nothing else appeared broken. The house was consistent. The photographs were consistent. The documents were consistent. Even Jackson's memories seemed consistent. Only Julie remembered a completely different life. Then something strange happened. The room seemed to ripple. Julie grabbed the couch for balance. A sudden burst of restless energy surged through her. She laughed for no reason, then began moving around the room, unable to stand still. Jackson watched her with amused concern. Goodness, she said. You've certainly got plenty of energy today. Julie laughed again. For a few moments, the impossible situation didn't frighten her. It felt normal. Too normal. Jackson eventually led her toward the bedroom, where another collection of unfamiliar belongings waited. Julie stared at them, confused by the certainty that seemed to settle over her mind. It was almost as though another version of her life was trying to overwrite the one she remembered. When they left the house, Julie's thoughts were still racing. The car ride was equally strange. Jackson drove calmly while Julie stared out the window, asking endless questions about where they were going and what they would do afterward. Jackson answered every question patiently. At the restaurant, the hostess greeted them without hesitation. Table for two. Yes, Jackson replied. She gestured toward Julie. We together. The hostess smiled and led them to a booth. Nothing about the situation seemed unusual to anyone. That frightened Julie more than anything. A waitress brought them menus and placed a small activity sheet on the table for Julie. Julie looked down at it. For some reason, she found herself smiling. Then Jackson excused herself briefly. When she returned, the strange atmosphere continued. They ordered their meals. They ate. And then, something snapped. Julie froze. The strange haze disappeared as quickly as it had arrived. She looked at the table. Then at Jackson. Then at herself. What am I doing? Jackson went completely still. The color drained from her face. She looked around the restaurant as though seeing it for the first time. Julie. You remember? Jackson nodded slowly. I remember. Neither spoke for several seconds. The impossible illusion had broken. They suddenly understood that something had happened to both of them. Julie leaned closer. You're wearing. I know. And I know. They looked at each other, horrified. Then Jackson remembered the purse sitting beside her. With trembling hands, she opened it. Inside was a wallet. She pulled out an identification card. Her stomach dropped. The photograph showed the same elderly woman sitting at the table. Age, 74. Female. Jackson flipped through the wallet. Membership cards. Receipts. Photographs. Everything belonged to the same person. Then she discovered something even stranger. The photographs weren't limited to Jackson. Julie appeared in them too. But not as the woman she remembered being. In every photograph, Julie appeared as a young boy. At parks. At swimming pools. At family gatherings. Always beside Jackson. Always smiling. Always as though that version of their lives had existed forever. Julie slowly picked up one of the photographs. This isn't possible. Jackson stared at another. We were never like this. Were we? The question hung between them. Julie turned another photograph over. Nothing was written on the back. Only a date. A date from decades ago. Jackson's hands began to shake. She searched deeper into the wallet and found several old passes and cards bearing names, ages, and dates that matched the photographs. The evidence was overwhelming. Their memories said one thing. The world said another. And now they had discovered something even more disturbing. The world wasn't merely pretending. It had records. Photographs. Documents. Memories belonging to other people. A complete history of lives neither of them remembered living. Julie looked across the table. Jackson. I know. What if the life we remember? She couldn't finish. Jackson stared at the photographs. What if that was the change? Neither of them moved. Around them, the restaurant continued as normal. People talked, glasses clinked, and waiters carried plates from one table to another. No one noticed that two people sitting in a quiet booth had just discovered that their entire past might be a lie. Julie slowly pushed the photographs back toward Jackson. We need to find out what happened. Jackson nodded. For once, she whispered, I think we should leave the past alone. Julie frowned. Why? Jackson looked at the photograph in her hand. Because I'm beginning to think it might not be finished changing. Julie stared at the photograph. The caption beneath it was short enough to make her stomach drop. Julie, age 5. Jackson, age 74. She slowly raised her eyes. How long? Jackson looked equally shaken. How long has this been happening? Neither had an answer. The waitress appeared beside their table, completely oblivious to the crisis unfolding in front of her. Dessert, or shall I bring the check? Jackson swallowed. The check. He pushed his card across the table, signed the receipt with trembling fingers, and shoved everything back into his wallet. Julie gathered the old photographs and swimming passes, unable to bring herself to leave them behind. Outside, the evening air felt strangely cold. Cars passed. People laughed. A couple walked by carrying shopping bags. Everything looked normal. That was the problem. Julie hurried toward the car, her mind racing. What if this is real? She whispered. Jackson stopped beside her. What? What if the life we remember never happened? Jackson's expression tightened. Don't say that. But the evidence. I know. He glanced around the parking lot. We can't panic. Not here. Julie reached for the front passenger door. Jackson stopped her. You need to sit in the back. Julie stared at him. Excuse me. The safety seat. You cannot possibly be serious. His expression told her he was. We have to maintain whatever rules this world is following. Julie reluctantly climbed into the back. The booster seat felt absurd beneath her, but Jackson fastened it anyway before taking the driver's seat. As they pulled away, Julie crossed her arms. Where are we going? The senior center. She stared at him. Why? Bingo. You've got to be kidding. I wish I were. Jackson kept his eyes on the road. I don't know how I know this, but something inside me keeps saying that we have to win. Win what? A bingo. Julie groaned. This is insane. Probably. The senior center appeared ahead, glowing beneath rows of parking lot lights. Jackson parked between two large sedans. Inside, everything felt painfully ordinary. Coffee. Perfume. Quiet laughter. Bingo cards scattered across tables. Jackson immediately began greeting people as though he'd known them for decades. Jackson. An elderly woman hurried over. My goodness, Marlene. You look wonderful. Julie watched in disbelief as Jackson exchanged greetings with half a dozen women. Then came the inevitable introduction. This is my grandson. Julie forced a smile. The women adored her immediately. Oh, what a handsome little fellow. Look at those cheeks. Julie wanted to disappear. Instead, she stood there and endured it. Then she noticed someone else. A small child sitting near the edge of the room. Unlike the others, this child wasn't smiling. The girl watched Julie carefully. When Jackson stepped away, she leaned closer. First time. Julie froze. What? You know. The girl's voice dropped. The change. Julie stared at her. You remember? Of course. How long? 3 weeks. Julie's heart sank. There are others. The girl nodded. More than you think. Julie swallowed. How do we get out? The girl's expression became serious. Win. Win what? Bingo. Julie stared at her. That's it. I think so. The girl glanced toward the hallway. But if you don't? Julie waited. What happens? The girl's voice became barely audible. You stay the way you are. Before Julie could ask another question, Jackson returned. The girl's expression instantly changed. She smiled innocently. Jackson sat beside Julie and adjusted her cardigan. Everything all right, dear? Julie nodded. But her thoughts were racing. They needed to win. The bingo game began. Numbers echoed through the hall. Jackson barely paid attention. He was far more interested in discussing recipes and neighborhood gossip. Julie, however, treated the game like the most important thing in her life. Number after number. Mark. Check. Wait. Another number. She was getting close. 1 number away. Come on, she whispered. Jackson was discussing someone's garden. Then the caller announced the next number. Not hers. Across the room, another player shouted, Bingo. Applause broke out. Julie sank back into her chair. They had lost. Again. She looked at Jackson. He merely smiled. There's always another round. Julie wanted to scream. Instead, she gathered every card she could find and kept playing. Then a man approached their table. He looked down at Julie with obvious disapproval. Young man, he said, why are you dressed like that? Julie frowned. Like what? Like a child. Before Julie could respond, Jackson turned sharply. Is there a problem? The man's expression changed. The women around the table suddenly looked equally displeased. You heard him, one woman said. Leave the boy alone. Another shook her head. Some people have no manners. The man muttered something and walked away. Jackson placed a reassuring hand on Julie's shoulder. Don't worry about him. Julie nodded. Thanks. Then Jackson glanced toward the hallway. I need the ladies' room. Julie immediately looked at her cards. Go ahead. I'll be back. Jackson disappeared. A moment later, another child dropped into the empty chair. Hi. Julie sighed. Hello. I'm Jeffy. Jeffy opened a backpack. Do you like dinosaurs? Julie stared at him. No. Jeffy pulled out a plastic dinosaur. This is a T-Rex. Wonderful. This is a Triceratops. Great. And this one? Please move those. Jeffy continued anyway, lining the toys across the table. Julie tried to keep watching the caller. She missed 2 numbers. Fantastic, she muttered. Then the next number rang out. G56. Julie looked down. Her eyes widened. That number completed a row. She jumped to her feet. Bingo. The entire room turned toward her. Jeffy cheered. The caller checked her card. Then smiled. We have a winner. Julie could hardly believe it. She hurried to the front and received a small paper bag tied with a bright ribbon. At that exact moment, something changed. In the restroom, Jackson stared into the mirror. He blinked. The elderly woman's reflection disappeared. His real face stared back. 23. Male. Himself. Jackson touched his face. Oh my God. He rushed from the restroom. Julie was already heading toward the exit. Jackson. He grabbed her hand. We're leaving. They hurried through the parking lot. Jackson unlocked the car and climbed behind the wheel. Julie jumped into the front passenger seat. Then she turned around. Wait. The booster seat was gone. Completely gone. Jackson stared at it. There was nothing there. Julie looked at him. It's happening. He immediately checked his wallet. His driver's license showed his real photograph. Age, 23. Gender, male. Julie laughed in disbelief. We're back. They drove home in silence. The transformation had vanished as completely as it had arrived. The house was normal again. The strange dresses were gone. The elderly woman's belongings had disappeared. Julie's child-sized clothes were nowhere to be found. Even the photographs had vanished. Only the clothes they were currently wearing remained as evidence. Jackson changed into jeans and a t-shirt. Julie changed into her usual clothes. Then they sat together on the couch. Neither knew what to say. Until Julie suddenly remembered something. The prize. She ran outside and returned with the ribbon-tied bag. They emptied it onto the coffee table. 2 circus tickets. A packet of popcorn. 2 clown noses. Colorful streamers. A small makeup kit. Several tiny circus toys. Julie picked up the tickets. She read the wording aloud. Valid for anyone aged 5 to 74. Boy or girl. Man or woman. Everyone has fun at the circus. Silence. Jackson stared at the tickets. Julie slowly looked at him. Well. Jackson sighed. At least it didn't turn us into clowns. Julie grinned. Yet. They both stared at the mysterious tickets. Neither of them noticed the tiny line of text printed beneath the circus logo. Next performance, tomorrow. And neither noticed that, on the back of one ticket, a single number had appeared. G56.